Hello and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small, and it's a beautiful morning in TNT. And it's an interesting morning in TNT because it's the first morning since the events of last Friday.
Well, the events of last week Friday certainly had us all concerned and worried. And I'm still rather concerned and worried, but I'll tell you what, let's save that discussion for your daily review. Well, as mentioned by my co-host, the events of last week Friday, there were multiple bomb threats across various schools here in Trinidad and Tobago. 64 in total were affected. 55 schools in TNT were evacuated, and all 9 in Tobago actually were evacuated as well. Now, the Ministry of Education held a press conference, of which we will get into later on, but the response from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, well, that is under question. Of course, it will always be under question. It's under question for me, it's under question for many, because the Ministry of National Security did acknowledge that we don't have the resources, the required resources to actually deal with all these threats. So one squad from the bomb unit will have to go to each school, and then when that is completed, then they'll go to another. For example, Bishop Centenary College, which is located right here on Robert Street, from what I understand, was the very first school to receive the email, and actually they evacuated early. But from early that morning up until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon here, they closed up the street, out of an abundance of precautions, of course. But I have so many questions. For example, are we adequately equipped or resourced our cybercrime unit to actually trace where the source of the email? Are we going to work with international partners? Are we prepared to deal with these threats?
I think your first question there, that is different to the resources to deal with the actual physical threat or the physical nature of the potential threat. Because I'll be honest, and this is just my preliminary thoughts on it, I don't think TNT could really, truly ever afford to have enough bomb squad units to deal with 64 simultaneous bomb threats over 2 islands. It's just not practical, right? You're talking about, what, 24 teams to deal with a situation that we normally don't even need one team to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So it's not practical. The cybercrime aspect of it, on the other hand, to trace it, I think that should be something that we should have the capability, because just like you'll still want to have one bomb detection unit, bomb disposal unit, you'll still want to have the capability to deal with one incident. Ultimately speaking, on the cyber side, the email being sent out is not necessarily 55 or 64 separate incidents. It's really one incident. Yes, there are multiple recipients, but ultimately it's one incident to be well traced. And we do have a photo of the email, of the letter, if we could get that on the screen there. Reading it, it has interesting grammar, interesting choice of words, to the point where it actually seems a bit comical if this was also satire. And it does bring up many questions as to the origins of it. Is it a credible threat? Is it a prank?
I am no detective, by no means whatsoever, and I wouldn't know absolutely everything on the basis. You have to understand that, one, there is somebody who is intelligent enough to actually, create a fake email account, which is absolutely easy, but from a foreign designation, from an IP address that I've never heard of before, actually, and send this email off. Now, the letter is rather amateur. It certainly takes some level of courage or stupidity, I would like to put it, to actually, put this together. I think reading the letter at first glance, you'd think it's actually a prank. But like I said, in the world that we're living in right now, any ordinary criminal could type this. I think the thing is putting it together to send it off via the email. That's a completely different thing as compared to putting it together. For one, I think the two things that come to my mind. In the first instance, yes, we will never have enough resources to have multiple bomb squads. So the thing is it a distraction, or was it a distraction from something bigger? Because there's a possibility that I'm sending all these bomb threats out. People are saying it's because exams are coming up, and this is something that we've grown accustomed to. It's just us having to actually exercise certain procedures that are already in place, such as the evacuations of schools and all that. But to me, I think even though you'll never have all those resources, it's a distraction for something greater. That is one. Two, this only exposes something that we already knew, but it's an eye-opener, an even greater eye-opener. It exposes the vulnerability of Trinidad and Tobago, not only in terms of national security as a whole, but also the vulnerability of certain institutions such as schools.
No, but the thing is, though, a threat like this, at the end of the day, something like this, just about any collection of entities, right? So we're not dealing it as one education system, but the various schools make up multiple locations, which could be multiple targets, right? The threat itself, to send the threat, etc., it's not like you could prevent the email from coming through. The key point is usually, right, first of all, one would hope you would have enough of a security apparatus that such a threat would be difficult to follow through with in physical reality. And then the second thing is, yeah, you could get hoaxes. That's not new. It doesn't matter who you are. Even the Pentagon, to some extent, can get hoaxes. It's how you follow through. That's what's going to be potentially more alarming to me. Now, in this case, when you look at the letter, you alluded to one potential motive. Now, usually, an actual threat of a bomb would be because of either it's a criminal operation for the sake of illegal profits, financial, whatever the scheme is, some sort of scheme in order to make money, ransom, what have you. Or it's a political terrorism plot where you're not in it for the money, you're in it to send a message. The letter doesn't even necessarily make it clear what the point of the threat is. It's literally just a threat, which again, it makes other theories then now of it being a hoax or distraction somewhat, it gives it some credence. But my point is the physical security aspects, because the capabilities to actually plant so many bombs, to bring into the country, one would hope, this is where your border security comes in, to prevent explosives from coming in the country.
Sure, you're underestimating the ability of criminals. In Trinidad and Tobago, I do not ever underestimate the ability of our criminals. I think they're rather brilliant, and I say that where I always have suggested if people were to put their minds to good use rather than use it for this level of stupidity, for whatever reason it may be, then we can certainly be a better society. It's not even a matter of having to import explosives. I mean, I'm sure we're well aware of watching documentaries that it takes everyday materials to actually create a bomb. Furthermore, beyond that, if you are speaking about the response of national security services, I thought, okay, great, the police are there, the police are present, they're on the ground, but how many resources went into actually dealing with these 64 schools that had to be evacuated versus anything else that could have happened? You're always going to run into that. Also, and we'll take a look at this later. If you take a look at what the Ministry of Education suggested at their press conference, even if what you heard from the Minister of National Security, they were so shocked and surprised. It seems to me as though they had not one clue of what was happening, or they didn't know where to go, what to do, what to say. And I suppose in that time, all of us were in some shock and we were rather scared. So that's the point. How prepared are we to deal with such situations? Up until this point, the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service says there's no one of interest and they have not arrested anyone, nor have they identified anyone. That is where I have an issue as well.
Right, and that's what I was leading to. It's difficult to carry out the threat on the scale that was implied. Now, it's a lot easier to have one bomb threat, right? And you could mask it with however many false flags that you want. Part of it is what is the response with regards to the detection, you're running down the email, because that's one of the main ways where you could try to figure out, who is involved, where is it coming from, why is it happening, and potentially which school might be the actual school that's in danger. Evacuating all the schools was the right call, but the follow-up to that, yes, we're not going to have 64 bomb squads, but we should at least have the capacity, as you were saying, to more or less clear the schools and make sure that it's not as though, because all we need is just one threat to be real. The disappointing thing, though, ultimately, because the nature of security preparation is when you've never had to face the threat before, there's a very, very, it's very much human nature to be complicit in the sense of, well, we don't have to worry about those things here, so we don't really put much effort into it. So the first time will always catch, when you have a situation like that, it'll just catch everybody off guard because they're never expecting it. But at the end of the day, cybercrime is still something whose capability, it's not just about bomb threats, it's about a whole host of various things. Not having enough of a capacity it's one thing if they said we trace the email to a dead end. There's no way, nobody could go any further. It's a complete dead end to try to find out who sent it. Fine, okay. If on a technical level it's impossible, fine. But I don't get that impression just yet that we've been able to run it down that far.
I'm trying my best not to be extremely critical of the TTPS because I shouldn't act entirely surprised. Who knows, maybe the cybercrime unit is just an office in the TTPS administration building with a sign printed saying cybercrime unit, and you just walk in and it's 2 people working there. Who knows? I think, furthermore, I am grateful. There's no disappointment for me. I am grateful that everyone, in the end, was absolutely safe. Everybody got out. There were no casualties. No one was injured, and thankfully that happened. The NPTA president, whom I spoke to this morning, Mr. Kevin David, says many of the schools actually were not updated or informed as to what was taking place in a timely manner. And he's also suggesting that many schools aren't aware of the proper procedures because it is not practiced enough. So that's another concern as it relates to the Ministry of Education, and they're dealing with schools to ensure that these checks are carried out. The Prime Minister responded. He had a social media post, but there was a PNM Family Day, I think that took place over the weekend. He responded to it as well at the PNM Family Day, and he related it, saying it's not entirely surprising, it's not coincidental, given that there was a motion of no confidence in Minister Fitzgerald Hines. I think that response was absolutely, put it this way, it's not surprising coming from the Prime Minister, but at the same time, it's disappointing. I'm disappointed that he's chosen to go down that avenue, and I wouldn't comment any further. The Minister of National Security in Parliament was challenged by Opposition Member of Parliament, Dr. Ronald Munielal, over whether or not it was an act of terror. The Minister of National Security says, I agree that it was abominable, but it wouldn't be an act of terror because an investigation is still taking place.
Right, but to some extent, and again, this is where Minister Hines is misusing his words. You can't say it would not be an act of terror because an investigation is taking place.
He never said it would not be.
Okay.
He says he cannot call it an act of terror because an investigation is taking place. On the basis of it, if I were to just look up the definitions of terror according to the FBI or just Encyclopedia Britannica, for example, it's a terror. It's a terror threat.
Well, but the thing is, what would you see? And this is my issue in law enforcement terminology, and the reason why this matters is how you respond to it will be very different. A random threat, that is to say, that's just there to induce fear, right, will be responded differently to a terrorist threat when you usually utilize the word terror, which is why I hate when the media kind of just throw it out and conflate people being afraid to a terrorist attack, because a terrorist attack will have some sort of political motivation behind it. And one of the key things as well is the motivating factor behind a terrorist threat is that they don't care if they're caught or not, and they don't necessarily care who they hurt.
I'm not going to debate with you definitions and terms this morning, just as how I'm not debating the Minister of National
No,
Security
so
said.
I can understand why the minister said that.
The point is, respectfully, I disagree with you because you're looking at terror versus terrorist. You're even seeing political threats. It's not political, it's ideological, which are many factors. And furthermore, there's a difference between...
In this regard,
there's a difference between
ideological and
there's
political.
a difference between a threat and there's a difference between an act. And even some lawyers, senior counsels have responded already saying that there are multiple charges, even under anti-terrorism acts. But beyond that, let me not get too caught up in that particular conversation. The point is, I am only hoping that we do not politicize this any further. And I think that the Commissioner of Police, while she's taken time to respond to allegations of a Tea Party, she needs to communicate more with the public. At this point, the TDPS, again, I'm reiterating and repeating myself, has not come out with any sort of positive findings or anything to make us feel more comfortable. There has been no leads in the investigation. And bear in mind, okay, yes, it's only been, what, 2-3 days? It doesn't matter.
No, I understand that. But with regards now, what if it was literally just school children playing a hoax?
But that is what an investigation should do.
Right, but would that be terrorism?
And the very first thing, would it be this is the point. You are getting, and this is where I said, respectfully, I had to disagree with you. I am not going to get caught up in a debate that is nonsensical at this point, given the nature. Let the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, according to the minister, he doesn't want to get caught up in terminology.
Right, but how the police responds, right, it should be a full-out investigation regardless of where the end point is. But technically speaking, the minister is correct to say that he cannot definitively say if it's an act of terrorism, if it's a hoax, if it's a bomb threat for ransom. Those are different things. All three of those things are different things and necessitate a different response. If you go into a bomb threat for ransom thinking that it's terrorism, you might approach it the wrong way and either get somebody killed and or allow the criminals to escape because you're utilizing wrong procedure. So in that regard, I could appreciate him not wanting to state what it is. Regardless, you're correct in the sense of the investigative approach should be the same because you cannot assume that it is not a bomb threat. And this is where I think your criticisms of, well, the Prime Minister was at a family day and the Commissioner had, well, I think a Tea Party is coming up, or was it this weekend?
You know what? It's coming up, and again, it's not her Tea Party. Whatever.
Okay, right. Okay, well, if it's not right, but my point is, there's a potential crisis, right? Something that has not happened before potentially has now happened. It would be a lot more. We would have more confidence in the response if the leadership of the apparatus did not go about business as usual. Oh, it's fine, nothing to see here, family day and tea parties.
Well, here's the, I think, again, the Minister of National Security says the level of fear that was present on Friday has certainly calmed down. I think that works in favor because, yes, one caller has always suggested we shouldn't live in fear. We will always live in anxiety. We shouldn't live in fear. The issue is, to a certain degree, also seeing that on the part of the Minister of National Security permits him, in terms of there's an understanding that we're going to forget about this very shortly. So therefore, I don't really have to do much at this point rather than actually deal with a few questions or probably the scrutiny of the public, but it'll, fade away. Let's add one more element to this conversation of which we haven't touched on thus far. It's in a separate incident, but again, terror on school compounds. What happened at the Belmont Secondary School last week, Friday as well, with a health and safety officer encountering gunmen on the compound. Imagine this school is in close proximity to the Belmont police station. And he's encountering these gunmen. It is believed that they had just committed a crime and they were using the school as part of their escape. I mean, this is nonsense and appalling that it's spilling over into our compounds.
We'll get into that when we get into the next segment, but I just wanted to say, I think part of the issue is it would be easy. Like, okay, you want to not induce panic, showing us that you're not afraid and business as usual, and we're not going to stop just because of what could end up being a hoax, right? Because we haven't actually seen any evidence of actual bombs being planted, etc., etc. It's hard to accept that when the uncertainty is why we're afraid. We didn't see an explosion, so we're not afraid about some bomb going off and harming our kids. The uncertainty, because this has never happened before, the uncertainty because the response is not necessarily giving us any sort of concrete answers, even if they're preliminary, even if they're at the initial stages, there's nothing for us to necessarily consider. It's preliminary because we have to ask ourselves, yes, it's difficult to guard against threats like this, right? Or to prevent these emails being sent out. But when you have a law enforcement apparatus that has a better detection rate than what we have, generally speaking, it discourages idiots from sending out emails that are hoaxes, right? Because again, you can get hit with a whole set of serious charges, as the lawyer said, whether or not it was your intention or not, because of the fact that you're playing with fire here, even if you just think, oh, it's an innocent joke or whatever nonsense it is. But we don't necessarily have the detection rate to dissuade people. I'm pretty sure, I could very well see.
With an investigation going on currently,
people are saying, we're not going to be caught over this. We're just not.
With an investigation
it's hard for us to have confidence
happening currently, could we even say it's a hoax?
Well,
no bomb exploded on Friday. But again, I am very concerned. As I've suggested before, my final point, I will repeat myself as a conclusion, it has only exposed the vulnerability that there is as it relates to our systems here in Trinidad and Tobago.
There's even the very, very, very small outside minuscule chance that it's a false flag by somebody looking to do just that, expose the lackings of our national security apparatus. But
not only has it challenged our existing national security resources or infrastructure, but what it has further done is that it has exposed a weak response by those involved.
That's
and the criminals here in TNT have an understanding. Look, if a criminal feels confident enough or brave enough to issue such a threat to all these schools across Trinidad and Tobago, because from what I understand, some of the schools that were listed as per the media are not all. There were many others who actually were not including in the listing. But as I said, 64 schools in total evacuated. If a criminal feels confident or brave enough to actually issue such a threat, especially here in Trinidad and Tobago, then the criminals here in TNT have an understanding and recognize we can get away. It's unfortunate, it's scary, it's sad, but it is reality.
I think the key is, it's not that they're brave enough to think that they could get away. It's just that they're complacent enough and they have, to some extent, as funny as it sounds, every right to be complacent that they probably won't get caught. They take it for granted because look at our detection rate. For murders, actual violence being committed, it's 13%.
Detecting is one thing. Apprehending suspects following such a thing is a completely
You're not on a physical compound to deliver an email. You're not leaving physical evidence behind.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a break here on Talking Point. When we return, we'll actually take a look at the Ministry of Education's press conference last week, Friday, just a bit of it actually towards the end, as well as the account from Mr. Shaka Wallace. He was the health and safety officer at the Belmont Secondary School when he confronted the two gunmen on the compound. We'll be right back after this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship MacBean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
This May, the spectacular event you've been waiting for is coming. May 27th, celebrate amazing North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds, Blanchisseuse. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 38 Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
I was doing one of my routine patrols on the compound to ensure that students are safe. I was proceeding west, heading east to the farm area, and there was a blind spot to the building that when I turned the corner, I just bumped into 2 gunmen. I mean, actually I didn't really know it was firearms at first. They had t-shirts, you know, over their faces and disguising their, but I thought it was students. So I was like a bit surprised because we bumped into each other literally, and then one of them shouted at me, "Who is you? Who is you?" So I was like, and then I looked down and I realized they had pistols which looked like Glocks. So I was like, I'm just the safety officer here with the Ministry of the Game. And then one of the other gentlemen seemed very, I don't know, boy. He just seemed like he was on the next level. Like for some reason, like he wanted my head. So he was telling the other guy, bumping him and like, you know, trying to tell him, yo, boy, Jimmy man, one quick now, boy. So I put my hands up now. When I realized, you know, the intent is being made, I said, brother, I am just here as school safety officer, the Ministry of Education. Give him one in the head now, boy. So I just remained calm as possible as I could have been in that situation. And then there was a class actually going on next to me that the students were unaware of that situation. So it was so eerie. So I had to try and stay calm in order that these, you know, wouldn't alert these gunmen in such a way to make them, you know, because you know when people are scared, they react to situations differently. So I don't know. I just tried to stay calm as possible. And even, you know, they said to me, well, one of them said, well, you know what, turn around. No, they tried to get me to come to the back of the building. And I said, no, sir. I said, sir, no. I say, I'm just here. And they said, well, okay, well, turn your back and just walk. So I was just thinking about being shot in the back by this point. So while I was walking away, I was trying to alert students with a little, you know, without verbal, just doing hand signals, and they weren't as responsive as I would have liked. So then I had to shout at some point, and then I saw police. The police response was good. I saw police about 200 meters away with their weapons drawn, rushing onto the compound. But I don't know how them guys escaped so quickly, but they escaped. But there's many breaches in the area where they came in, so hoping those things are addressed.
When you say they escaped, where you saw them and where they escaped?
I didn't even want to look at where they were going. I don't want these guys to have reasons to discharge their firearms. So, but when we did physical checks after, myself and the acting principal, there's many visible breaches in the security at the farm area. I mean, you know, just pick your poison. If you want to jump, you want to climb a wall, you want to crawl on the ground anywhere, or you want to get in the school, you can get it.
up to now you haven't found why they were in school.
Well, sir, that is quite bemusing because to me it's only children there, and this is what was playing through my head there. I was trying to figure out, wow, am I going to get shot today and die on a school compound? Because it's supposed to be a haven for, you know, to engender learning, not so. So,
what's your name again?
Shaka Wallace is the name, sir.
And your position?
I am school health safety and security officer here at this school.
I'll be very honest with you. I never really heard of a health and safety officer at a school before. I'm wondering if that is something that is recently implemented or relatively new. But it doesn't matter. He said something there which caught my attention almost immediately. He saw the police. He saw the police heavily on police, rushing onto the compound. And he says, up to now, I don't know how these gunmen escaped. He says, you know, I confronted these gunmen. One was even suggesting to put a bullet in my head. I'm still alive, but how is it that these people escaped when I myself, in that moment, also saw the police, heavily armed police, rushing onto the compound? So I mean...
Well, I mean, the answer was the fact that he said that there were multiple ways to get in and out. But I think the irony, of course, is it's a school, right? You're not thinking, ooh, we have to secure... to some extent, you can't put such security measures to make it impossible to come in and out. It's not a prison, right? It's not Fort Knox. You're not guarding gold bullion. It's kids. The more security... At some point, the security becomes excessive, oppressive, and even potentially dangerous if it makes it difficult to evacuate the school, because we just had a situation where, you know, we needed schools to be evacuated.
Well, one might think, Keaton, you're being rather daft. I'm not, because my thinking is that you have police rushing onto the compound to deal with a situation that, if confronted, it more than likely would have turned into a gunfight between the police and these gentlemen.
Which could have been very catastrophic.
Exactly. So again, we're grateful that nobody was hurt or harmed in this instance. But furthermore, if police are aware of the situation, rather than rushing onto the compound as they did, right, because that tells me that their mind is pumped, their heart is pumped, their adrenaline is up. If I am not mistaken, you are or you should secure every possible avenue, and notice what I said, every possible avenue of the school compound before you are making your entrance for it to turn into a gunfight. Because it gives the police an advantage that they have an aim at almost every single angle. And furthermore, it allows for any opportunity of escape to try and be quickly dealt with. I know I said try, it's not always possible.
There are two philosophies in a situation like that. The first philosophy is like what you said. Make sure that they don't have an avenue to escape and try to hem them in. The problem, of course, is you don't necessarily want to actually have any sort of confrontation around civilians, much less a school. So the second philosophy would be, and this is where I think they might have done it halfway. You don't necessarily surround the school. You don't block off the entrances to the school. You basically herd them in a direction. You don't force a confrontation. You leave them a way to leave the school by coming through one direction, and it naturally, if they don't want to fight, they will leave in the opposite direction. The key point then is, because you're trying to avoid a confrontation. So,
I agree. Running onto a compound is the worst possible thing.
With police procedures, sometimes it's you actually give the criminal space to leave, so that, you know, like in a high-speed chase, you don't necessarily always try to bring the car to a stop. Sometimes when they're chasing a car in different jurisdictions, they'll just follow until there's a section of the highway where there aren't any civilian cars.
Sure.
Now, where they failed is, even if they wanted to do that, they should have secured the vicinity around the school, so that once they left the school, you could converge on them
Based off of your logic, what you just described, that is exactly what transpired. You gave them an opportunity to exit.
Without the follow-through.
They escaped. But I think furthermore, my thing is that, and I'm questioning this, and all of these things are just coming to my mind, is whether or not a police station, in the district of that police station, or the jurisdiction of that police station, there are multiple schools.
Yeah.
But should that police station also be equipped with updated maps of a school compound. This is the main entrance, this is the main exit. We have this entrance, we have this gate here, we have this gate here, and there is this wall at the side, but there is no wall. I'm talking about certain things like that, because of the possibility of this happening again, based off of what we saw on Friday, we shouldn't downplay that.
Normally, the answer would be no, but in this case, I think the answer would be yes, just because the chances of this happening again are not low enough to say, well, it's not necessary. And more importantly, what the safety officer said there, when he and the principal walked around the school, and there are a lot of breaches to the point where he's concerned that there are too many avenues in and out that are too easy. I mean, granted, a normal wall, most schools, if somebody wanted to scale the wall, they could scale the walls of most schools. But there's a difference between one is just so simple that they could disappear almost seemingly into thin air, as opposed to having to put effort into getting through whatever barricade or obstacle.
Well, I'll tell you what, before we go any further, let's take a look at this video from the Ministry of Education's press conference last Friday. This is just towards the end, actually. These are the final questions that were asked. Probably the most important. Let's see this video.
Just final question. Is there a specific unit within the ministry that can investigate these things, or is this specifically cybercrime that you're going to have to pass this on to?
This is a police matter. This is a police matter.
All right. My usual question, Prime Minister been informed, has he given you any instructions or anything that he wants you to convey to the public?
Well, I'm doing exactly what you would expect me to do at this point, keeping the public informed. We would have put out a press release earlier today so that the public is aware that we know what is happening, we are dealing and treating with it, and so that we don't have parents panicking and wondering, what exactly is the protocol, what's taking place. We're informing. This is the protocol that has been followed. We want to thank our principals and our teachers for ensuring that the safety of our children was paramount, and so we are moving forward with the investigation with the help of the police, and we really want to make a call. I want to make a personal call to our children, for our children, on behalf of our children, asking those who are involved in this to understand the repercussions that destabilizing our education system has on our children. I have a child out of school today. I'm sure Mr. Morris Julian, many of us sitting on here will have children or grandchildren or nieces or nephews. This affects us all. So it takes a village to raise a child, and we have to be more mindful of the effects of our actions on our children. So I would just really, in the strongest terms, condemn what happened today, and I would appeal to those involved to not do this again to our children.
And just one last question from myself. Have you been in contact with the Chief Secretary of Tobago, seeing as how some schools in Tobago are also affected?
No, but the ministry officials have been in touch with Tobago, and so that's how we know Tobago has been affected and what's happening there.
I think we have to be, all of us, in anything that we do and whatever we say, we always have to be mindful of such and the impact it would have on anybody watching or viewing. Mm-hmm. But again, the Ministry of Education did not hold a press conference. We would all be scratching our heads this morning.
Is it me, or did she say the children or the kids involved? As though, I'm wondering if officially, internally they think that it is a hoax.
It sounded as though that came across. I got that impression as well.
No, I actually think she directly said it at one point to imply that it wasn't just adults on the outside involved, but children, relatively speaking.
Then the Minister of Education
should not have said that.
Should not have said that, because if we're dancing around the fact that it's purely a TTPS matter and the fact that an investigation is being carried out, then I wonder if it's just a faux pas on the Honourable Minister's part.
It might have just been a slip, in the sense of the fact that there were no actual explosions heavily implies this is more or less the in hindsight the proof of if it's a hoax, right? And then you think, well, who would want to cause a hoax? You would think of school children. So I mean, the implication is there, but again, if you want to be proper and official, let the investigation run its course. It's better to say, well, we've investigated and we could prove that it's a hoax, as opposed to, well, we've investigated, we don't have a clue and we think it is a hoax.
TTPS, please give me some confidence. Inspire me a little bit.
Oh boy.
Let's take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, guess what? We have the TTPS with us this morning. We'll be right back after this.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Site, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WESN,
the Content Capital.
People really want to know, what about me? Where do I fit? Yes. What is in the ride for me in terms of a better Trinidad and Tobago? And I'm pleased to shed some light on that.
The purpose of bail is to ensure your attendance at court. That's it. It is not punitive, it is not rehabilitative.
We the police officers, we are professional and we are here for whenever the survivor is ready to come forward.
We have the right to private and family life, the right to religious freedoms and beliefs and thoughts and expression. But these rights are not absolute. Certain rights can be limited.
The law is to govern the whole, is for all of us in public.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, The Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah. Hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and thank you for staying with us. We're now joined by Acting ASP Christopher Arjun from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. Thanks. Just a correction. It's Arun without the J. Sorry.
My sincerest apologies. I'm seeing Arjun in front of me. Forgive me, but
that's all right.
Thank you very much for joining me this morning, for joining Sean and I this morning on the program. And I would imagine that
pleasure to be here.
You would have been very busy over the last couple of days.
Yes.
Any updates for the public as it relates to the investigation?
Well, with respect to the threats towards the schools with the bomb scare, we have the investigation is actively ongoing. There's not much that we could say. The preliminary inquiries thus far, it appears to be a mischievous act on behalf of whatever party conducted that operation. And we are, as I said, actively investigating. We've liaised with cybercrime. We have the units that the stakeholders on board in the TTPS that pursuing these investigations. You have Special Branch, you have the cybercrime unit, you have the Criminal Investigations Department.
Do you have any information you could share with us as it relates, and this is off the bat, so if you do, as I understand, as it relates to the staffing of the cybercrime units and of the bomb squad or the TTPS?
No, I don't have actual figures with respect to that. They are, as far as we liaise one-on-one, from the Special Victims Department, we liaise one-on-one with cybercrime. And thus far, they've always reported having adequate staff and resources to deal with any situation that arises, especially our investigations and Special Victims Department. It does seem that they are adequately staffed and resourced to deal with this situation that arose on Friday.
No, thankfully, nothing transpired following Friday's incident. Nobody was hurt. There
were no reports of anybody hurt. We've also been liaising with the Ministry of Education because what it did, the act, it stopped the learning process in these schools, and we expect that there would be some psychological effect on the students. And we've been liaising with the Ministry of Education. Hopefully, they get their student support services in to assist with counseling these students. Where they fall short, we have the victim and witness support unit.
Go ahead.
So something like this, as far as I can remember, I don't think I've ever heard of anything quite happening like this, or at least nowhere near this scale.
Right.
Now, is this something that the schools themselves are properly prepared for? Because I understand, yes, the schools were evacuated, but we have heard some things that it wasn't necessarily all that smooth with regards to, disseminating information down to the schools, what to do, what's the procedure, because that can mean the difference between, a quick response or slow response, and if there was a real situation happening, that can make a difference.
From the policing perspective, it seemed quite adequate. The Ministry of Education would have their protocols in place when it comes to evacuation procedures, muster point locations, and they have these protocols in place for these type of incidents. So from our policing perspective, we have no harsh criticisms for the Ministry of Education, the schools. It appears that they adequately dealt with the situation. They evacuated the school within the time frame that they received the information, because you're talking about many schools within a short period of time having to evacuate. It seemed it may have caused some traffic disruption and some disruption to the parents to have to come to pick them up. But it appeared that from our perspective, it didn't cause much of a disruption.
Mr. Arun, we know how this works. I don't expect you to be critical of any authority or any agency involved.
Yeah.
But if we could be honest with each other, is the Trans-Tobago Police Service equipped, resourced, and even properly trained to deal with instances such as this? Because that is where I said, thankfully, nothing happened.
It is normal culture for Trinidadians to believe that the TTPS isn't equipped. But we have the bomb squad technicians. We have other stakeholders that are equipped with bomb technicians, if you want to use that term. And like Bmobile and TSTT and other entities, they are other stakeholders with the resources that we could depend on. In the past, we have done it. In this case, we have our own bomb technicians, which we've utilized. We have the dogs, the canines, we have the personnel. So was it a large scale that the police service could not have addressed it? To me, we adequately addressed it. And to me, we are actively investigating it with the resources at hand. And again, from the cybercrime perspective, our colleagues at cybercrime indicated that they have the resources to investigate.
The schools were they all cleared? Each school that
as far as
that
I'm
was
aware,
given a threat,
yes.
Were all
as
cleared?
far as I'm aware, yes. I'm I can't say for 100% certain that that was done.
Right.
But as far as I am aware, because we understand there were schools as far as Sally Bay, in Port of Spain, QRC. So we understand there were schools that there were a number of schools. I understand it was 55, but I'm not too sure if all were cleared. Or you mean from the evacuation perspective?
No, from
the police.
From the threat perspective, to check to see with regards to like bombs and.
Well, I can't say. I'm not too sure because that would take a while to have it done. I haven't liaised with my colleagues in those areas to get that update.
I'm sorry. Your response just now to my question had me rather concerned.
Yes.
If you're relying on TSTT, God help all of us.
No, I'm just saying that we have stakeholders in other areas.
I know.
Yeah.
But
I'm not saying we did. Huh?
TSTT is not necessarily for anti-bomb or bomb disposal technology. Telecommunications.
No, they had in my days, in my younger days, they had bomb technicians.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, they did. Okay. Yeah. And we depended simultaneously in the private sector as well. Yeah.
Okay.
So we did, but now we have
cross-training.
Yeah, we did cross response to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Could you give the assurance this morning to all parents watching that their children are going to be safe in schools? Because it's not only the multiple schools with bomb threats across the nation, but it was that incident at Belmont Secondary School as well, with the 2 gunmen on the compound.
Yes, I spoke to Inspector Baliwa from the Criminal Investigations Department at Belmont quite recently. The incident did take place on Friday. And with respect to that, again, the investigation is ongoing. But from a policing perspective, it was responded to quite quickly because the school is basically next to the station. Within under 2 minutes, the officers were there. The perpetrators had fled the scene already. They were masked. I understand the gentleman made certain comments that we are also pursuing, but the men were masked and they were armed according to him. There was no disruption to the school or to the students. We reached out to the Ministry of Education, and what we understand is that they would get their student support services involved. However, there's no school for those students, and maybe the entire school today. I wasn't too certain if it was for the entire school or those students.
In particular as well, you said there was a quick response. I'm wondering if that is what the TTPS, that is what their aim is, quick response. Quick response is one thing, efficient response is another, effective response is another.
No, the aim and objective of the TTPS at any point in time is to bring this sense of security.
So how did the gentleman escape?
Well, you have to understand we are operating with the information we had at hand. We had at hand. So as I said, it's an ongoing investigation.
Was it just that you all were told that there's an incident at the school and to respond to it? That is to say, it unfolded very quickly?
It was reported, as the gentleman reported, and it was responded to effectively and quickly. But I didn't understand where you were coming from with that.
In what sense?
In the sense that you didn't understand if it was just a response. For the purpose of response?
Responding quickly is good.
Yeah.
I have no criticisms for responding quickly, but this morning my co-host and I were debating on air what would a police response include, whether it be a coordinated approach to try and seal off the exits from the compound, because even running in just like that, and again, we don't know everything, which is why I'm glad you're here to inform us and educate us, but running into a compound heavily armed like that, couldn't that lead to a confrontation which could have turned out to be a gunfight in itself?
Well, I mean, it wasn't an active shooter situation where men were actively shooting at anyone. What the response was based on the information at hand. Armed gunmen means armed response. The officers are trained to, in what we call the protocol with the how you respond in schools. It fails me to remember this time, but
rules of engagement.
Yeah, it's basically rules of engagement.
Okay.
So you have to look at your background selection. You have to understand the person, the environment. So when you respond to that type of report, you have to be extra cautious in that setting. The armed response would just be almost temporary. So you have an armed response. You get into the school. You try to locate the perpetrators, and then the information quickly came that they had fled. So then it became a pursuit of these perpetrators. So based on the information, the officers went in pursuit of these perpetrators. So they would have had reason to mostly leave the school, leaving a small team behind to address any concerns with the students, the teachers, the principal, and the security?
Well, we have to break for news, but the acting ASP here has also graciously volunteered to face the hot seat, that is questions coming from you, the viewers. So stay tuned. When we return, we'll open up the phone lines. We want to hear from you what questions you have. It could be about any of the various issues that happened over the weekend, or even if you have any more long-term considerations. But News on the Hour is next. We'll be right back.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Commissioner of Police Hereward Christopher responds to Tea Party claims. 2 more murders recorded on Sunday. Regionally, UN urges countries in Caribbean, Americas to suspend expulsion of Haitians. And internationally, suspected IS chief killed in Syria. Now for the details. The Commissioner of Police has taken note of statements appearing in the local media indicating that the Commissioner will be hosting a tea party and suggesting it inappropriate and insensitive for such an event to be occurring at this time. The Commissioner denies hosting a tea party as is being published. The tea party being referred to is an event of the Trinidad and Tobago Association of Women Police to raise funds to support the attendance at the International Association of Women Training Conference in New Zealand. This fundraising event has been held regularly over the years, and traditionally, the association will request and be granted the use of the official residence of the Commissioner for the hosting of the event. The murder toll has climbed with the killing of a man last night. Reports say the man was shot dead around 9 p.m. The incident occurred at Ramkisoon Trace, Santa Cruz. Meanwhile, earlier on Sunday, Brandon Basinton was gunned down in his vehicle by unknown gunmen when he accompanied his brother to purchase a cell phone. The incident took place along Piccadilly Street, East Port of Spain. Investigations are continuing. In regional news now, a United Nations committee on Friday called on countries in the Americas and the Caribbean to suspend expulsions of Haitians facing a chilling wave of violence. The Committee on the Elimination of Racial Discrimination estimated that 36,000 Haitians were expelled from other countries between January and March and expressed concern about measures taken without an adequate assessment of the protection needs of each individual. In international news now, Turkish forces have killed the suspected leader of the Islamic State group in Syria, Turkey's president has announced. Abu Hossein al-Qurashi is said to have taken over the group after his predecessor was killed last autumn. The IS leader was neutralized in a Turkish MIT intelligence agency operation on Saturday. IS has so far made no comment on the reported operation. Well, that was your News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Safe and sound, that's how we'll get you to the biggest North Coast Jazz ever. No hassle and no worries. Park your ride at the Queen's Park Savannah, hop on board a safe and secure shuttle with your $100 return fee, and that's it. Service begins at 10 a.m. through 1 p.m. and returns from festival grounds from 7 p.m. Park and ride, a $100 return fee, first come, first go shuttle service to festival grounds Blashy shares. No hassle and no worries. North Coast Jazz, May 27th. Born here, played here.
Tickets available at Crosby St. James, Kenny Sport, Extra Foods, Mart's Liquor Palace, 14 Diego Martin Main Road, and WESN, 30A Gattaca Street, Woodbrook.
Welcome back to Talking Point, and thank you for staying with us. Acting SP Christopher Arun is with us this morning, and as my co-host mentioned before the news, he's actually taken the request to accept phone calls and questions from the viewing public. So let's not delay any further. Let's open up the phone lines, ladies and gentlemen. You can now share with us your thoughts and opinions as to the events that transpired last week Friday and over the weekend. And should you have any questions or concerns for the acting ASP, he's agreed to take it. So the number should be on your screen in a moment. We already have a caller on the line with us from Pitty Valley. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, Sean and Keaton and the officer there.
Good morning.
Sir, to the officer there, sir, I want to thank you, sir, for your service.
Thanks.
So you all does be criticized sometimes good and sometimes I think unfoundly. You all in a very, very ticklish job in this country, sir. So, number one, if you all did respond to the Belmont situation in school and took an hour to respond, the questioning would have been different.
Correct.
You all respond in 2 minutes, so I congratulate you all for that.
Yes,
when you all respond to me, to my knowledge, the perpetrators had almost left the scene.
Right.
So then now that turning now to you all tracking them, sir, number one. Number two, sir, the question is where you all is asking what is your response if you all have enough response to the bomb threat. So all you had was to say, honestly, no country will have 55 bomb squad to go to 55 schools simultaneously at the same time, sir. That is all you had was to say. Nobody could have 55 bomb squad at the same time. So I acknowledge your thing to the country, and the police does be sometimes criticized, sometimes unfairly, sir. Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Well, I did say that at the top of the show that no country would be able to respond to that many threats.
Have a nice day, sir.
But technically, that's not what my co-host was asking the ASP at the time.
That is absolutely fine. The caller has expressed his thoughts and opinions. We're always welcome to that.
It is an important point to reiterate.
We have a caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning.
Morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Morning, ASP Arun.
Morning.
You know, this morning I was flabbergasted. I was disappointed in listening to that discourse with you two gentlemen on this issue. You all went after the TTPS in a way that you all should not have. You all should not have done that. This is a situation where you have 55 bomb threats, and that's a crime, eh? 55 bomb threats. In addition to which, there were two assailants in a school. And if you listen to that clip that you all played with that safety officer, and one of those, as he said, we have to go by his words, when they put up at the back of the school, when one of them told the other one, put one in his head to murder him. And you all missed the point that this country is under siege by people with firearms, and now it seems as if the easiest way to end a dispute is to kill somebody. And you all went after the TTPS in a wrong, and you all need to apologize to the TTPS for that this morning. I am very, you all know I love you all, but I'm very harsh with you all this morning, and I understand just what Pitty Valley was saying to you all. Thank you.
Well, again, I would just like to point out at the top of the show, I did start off by saying that, look, no country, especially one our size, is going to have 55 bomb squads to automatically just send out to schools to have to deal with the physical threat, the cybercrime response. We would have liked to see more depending on how the communication unfolds. I'll concede one point though, but you go first.
I will say actually to Pitty Valley and to San Fernando, I'm actually very much grateful for your constructive criticism, because not only has it fueled some level of thinking amongst all of us, and I'm very pleased that you have been very open with us, I accept your constructive criticism simply to say that I am not necessarily critical of the TTPS's response. Because as I said, thankfully nothing happened. I think for me, the question is, given that the vulnerability has been further exposed, whether or not we have the adequate resources. And it doesn't necessarily mean 55 bomb squads, by the way. So as much as y'all are being critical, and very much open to that, and thank you for that, please understand the avenue or the context from which I was coming. But very much open to your thoughts. Another caller on the line with us. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning, Sean. Good morning, Ethan.
Good morning.
Good morning to the officer.
Morning.
I believe our security forces are in a test. It's in our security forces now. Because you can see what's going on. In front of a police station, there are 5 guys fighting. And over than 5 and no police have come onto the road. That all. You understand? In the airport had a fight with certain singer. It had no, where is security? If you go to the airport and you park up and you need to drop out passengers, stay a couple of minutes longer, they just come and tell you, move. Where is the security in this country? What's really going on? But I feel with this bomb, people are testing the forces. It's not fair though.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Just you want to respond to that about the airport?
With respect to the incident at the airport, I spoke to Woman Sergeant Grant at the Piaco police station, and she indicated that the airport authority, although no report was made directly to the Piaco police station, they would have reached out to the airport authority and they would have reported that there was an officer there that called for backup. And the officer, in calling for backup, by the time the backup reached from the airport's authority, the perpetrators had fled. It is an active investigation, apparently. It is being conducted by the airport's authority, as far as I understand, because their jurisdiction is the airport. So the TTPS would assist when necessary, because they would have fled in some way from the scene, and this would entail the TTPS getting involved in that aspect. But however, with respect to the investigation, because the investigation could be one of where the victim, there is a victim, or where there was a fight. But when there is a fight, it means that all parties are culpable. If it was a case of where the victim, there is a victim, then the victim is the offenders would be culpable against the victim, towards the victim.
Well, we do have a caller on the line with us from Shagonas. Good morning, caller. Hello?
Hello?
Hi, good morning.
Sorry, I missed last week because we're talking about crime and Indians and whatnot. And one of your callers pointed out that the one man they hang from Buddha was an Indian. If we go back further, when I grew up, every crime lord I know was Indian. I know none who was African. You had those boys in Harlem, you had Bill in Tunapuna, and a number of them. And I have one show to you in detail to show you how the African got into it in East Dry River. And all the old buildings that was acquired and government leave them there, and this is what is causing the crime. Then Manning went and put them on the train line. And if the police, but not the police is only one arm of the government. If the government intends to deal with crime, they have to maintain law and order. That is to enforce every law. If you look at what the police is doing, there are many laws they make no attempt to enforce. I have called these audio programs, so I will not repeat them again. Any questions, gentlemen?
No,
usual.
Thank you very much. Actually, I didn't get a chance, but that point I did want to bring up in our conversations because, I will concede to Petit Valley and San Fernando that to some extent they're right in the sense of perhaps we did not express our points too much. Now, with regards to the Belmont case, we spoke off air afterwards where what we didn't say on air before you joined us, perhaps it was a case where they didn't have time to have an elaborate response and it was just better to respond, as soon as possible because you have gunmen in a school or on a school compound. So I'll concede that with regards to the timing, you're not going to have the perfect response. with regards to the wider situation, I think it comes back down to the lack of faith in the criminal justice system as a whole, of which the TTPS is a part of, but it's not the only part. And it goes back down to the low conviction rate, low detection rate on murders. You know, it's just a widespread thing. Poor border security, which I did kind of briefly mention. That's a concern because it should be difficult to get explosives into the country and to have explosives. Yeah. But if our borders are insecure, and I don't know if you could comment on that, but it puts that situation up in the air. The uncertainty that it leaves the public now, because we don't know.
Mm-hmm. I think, though I am open and welcoming to constructive criticism and appreciative of San Fernando and Petty Valley, respectfully, I am not in complete agreement. And the reason being is because I think generally I still have a lot of questions, and everybody will see things differently. Mm-hmm. Though there was one point that Petty Valley raised, which I will say was very good. Had the Trans-Tobago Police Service not responded, because as I said, responding quickly is one thing, responding effectively and efficiently is another. Yeah. But had you not responded in 2 minutes, had you taken 20 minutes, yes, the criticisms would have been a lot harsher. Yeah. You know? So in that regard, certainly I take my hats off to the TTPS. Because, but I only hope it continues. And I say that because in my personal experiences, I'm actually still waiting on a police response, a patrol to show up for about 5 days now, and they still haven't showed up. So, you know, I'm just saying.
It's a report? Or?
It's a report that was made, yes.
Right. Well, I mean, I don't have any information.
No, that's fine. It's just, I know that there are avenues to try and sort that sort of thing out, but you can understand why sometimes I take everything with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, well, on that issue, I mean, I have to encourage members of the public that when they don't see a response effectively or efficiently from the TTPS, they need to, I would implore them, they don't need to, but I would implore them to speak to somebody at the station who is senior. We always ask citizens, you know, we sometimes fall short as the TTPS in some aspects, but I think response should be one of them. And if it is that the response is poor, you should reach out to the senior people at the stations or the departments. You would have a better response from them, because we are on an exercise to bring our staff up to date with these issues, to train them better, and it's an improvement. The TTPS is on a drive to improve in all areas, especially customer service.
It's not to say that the Trans-Tobago Police Service is oblivious to the concerns as raised by the public.
No, of course not. Because as a liaison officer with the TTPS at the Special Victims Department, I am always in a position to answer these queries as well. So I encourage people, if you don't get a response, because our officers are also limited in how they respond to members of the public when you ask for an update on certain issues, and they have to bring it to our attention. And at our level, we would deal with it.
But I've also noticed, based off of experience, but also based off of what I've heard, and maybe you can give us more insight to this, that you quicker get a response if you contact E99 rather than your local police station. In other words, the police station that has jurisdiction in the area where you live, which should not necessarily be the case.
Well, I don't know if that's factual. You base it on what you heard.
And also experience.
On experience.
Well, wouldn't that technically be the point of E99?
No. Well, E99 is just a quicker way to get the same response. So if you call the police station and you indicate you have an emergency, they would send a response unit. Whether you call them or you call 999. 999 is just a simpler and a more effective way of communicating with police. So when you dial 999, as opposed to maybe a 7-digit number, you get a quicker response, hopefully. Yeah.
So I think there are mixed opinions, there are mixed feelings. But as I said, I know that an officer sitting in your position, sitting in your seat, even right now, is not necessarily easy, because you will face some flack from us. You will face some criticism from the public. You will also face the support of the public. But what about the confidence of police officers within the Trans-Tobago Police Service? Because as much as we as citizens are living in fear and anxiety, you ladies and gentlemen, the servicemen are the ones on the ground who are actually on the firing range every day.
Yeah. I mean, we want to be there. We want to be there. We need to be there. We want to be there. We've taken this position because it's an admirable position to take. From my perspective, I have 22 years service, and in that time frame, I've worked with a number of colleagues who have human experience and made it their career to be police officers. What you see is probably a percentage of the TTPS that makes it into the light, that shouldn't be there, but you don't see the persons that really are effective in the background. Because I'm sure you never heard of me before, but I've made arrests. Up to being an inspector of police, I've arrested persons. I've conducted exercise where we got several hundred rounds of ammunition off the streets, several kilograms of marijuana and drugs and cocaine off the streets. But the thing is that there are a lot of officers I work with, and you don't hear their applause, because they are the ones in the background fighting the good fight. And then you all, and in the media and the members, the public only hear about the good. Now that's why the TTPS Ambassador Program came on, to not just to educate the public on if somebody uses obscene language or you have a neighbor that's given trouble, but also to highlight the good that the TTPS does. On any occasion, there's a number of persons that have been brought before the courts in the Special Victims Department over the past few days. We have approximately 5 persons who were arrested in those few days for various offenses, from sexual penetration, sexual touching, indecent assault, and cruelty. And we don't highlight it.
Yeah. I think it's always easier to focus on the negative rather than the positive.
But rest assured, rest assured, there are members of the public, from the commissioner to the most junior officer. There are persons who are taking the fight to the criminals.
Well, to switch gears slightly, because this is something I bring up with ASPLE multiple times, with regards to, I have always had concerns ever since COVID and the public health regulations, and towards the tail end, because it was, well, we have to deal with COVID, the police will see about that, then we had violence in the schools as they came back to schools, they asked for the police to help. I have worries about the staffing levels. Now recently, the Service and Welfare Association president said the service is understaffed. Could some of the issues, because I know from a small business perspective, your staffing could make these problems appear, or make them appear worse than they actually are. Could it be that part of the issue with response times and what kind of response we get is because of staffing levels, and maybe that they overwork police officers too often?
Sorry, Acting SP, if I could just ask you to hold your response to that. We do have a caller from Digger Martin on the line with us. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning, sir.
The officer here.
Morning.
I just want to express my sincere thanks to you all for the service you have given to the country. I know your services are very dependent, people are dependent on it. And you all do your best, and you can hope that you continue in that vein. I know when we all are working, we are sleeping, and you have to take all these things into consideration. So I do appreciate all the good things you are doing. We know there are several bad ones in between, and they eventually be eliminated.
Probably
keep up the good work, and to you young gentlemen, have a good morning and a good day. And thank you for taking my call.
Thank you very much, Colin. Oh, thank you very much for your dose of positivity.
Yes.
I think sometimes that is absolutely necessary. We need that. But as you were about to respond,
could it be that not enough staff is causing these issues? Because it's just hard to respond to everybody when you don't have enough people.
Well, I mean, I can't say from my position as special victims, we have to manage in any position in the TTPS, whether you're a corporal, a sergeant, an inspector, an assistant superintendent, senior superintendent, assistant commissioner of police. From any position in the TTPS, you are called upon to manage the police service in your own regard. So in my own respect, at the level I work at, I have to manage my officers. And is in managing them that we get a better response to the issues in Trinidad and Tobago. So on a whole, I can't speak for the entire TTPS if it's a manpower issue. It's about a management issue that we as managers must explore. So when we get that, when it comes under our purview, we need to address it. We need to say, okay, this is where I'm going to put this staff, this is how I'm going to have them respond. To sit here and just say, well, listen, it's a manpower issue. It could be a manpower issue. It could not be a manpower issue.
Okay. Just like to, sway the conversation from a different direction. I know earlier you were saying part of the reason why the Media Ambassador Program was established was to also highlight the good that the Trans-Tobago Police Service is doing. How would you describe the relationship between the media here in TNT and the Trans-Tobago Police Service, from your perspective?
Well, I'm very new to it. I'm very new to the relationship we have. So far, it seems to be, to me, it seems to be a very good one. You all may not get the answers you look for, because we are sitting in a position of knowledge, and we have to be careful how we disseminate that knowledge to you all, because it's sensitive information.
No, but even based off what you might see being reported on a daily basis in the press as compared to, as you just said, you have to be careful. But highlighting the good news or the good that is being done.
Even in highlighting the good news, we have to be very careful in how much we give to the members of the public. But again, because in highlighting even matters of a sensitive nature like special victims, you would be telling people, you know, we have kids that are under siege in Trinidad and Tobago, and you may not want it to come out that it's the amount, because you want to show that you are effective, yes, but you don't want to victimize them, the children. You don't want them to think that, because children think differently, and you don't want them to think, oh, is he speaking about my incident? Should I not have spoken to the police about my incident? Because different people deal with trauma differently. So even from that perspective, we are very careful how we come out in the public and say, well, listen, there was an arrest in Diego Martin, and the perpetrator was A, because then talking about A could lead to divulging who the victim is or who the survivor is. So we are very careful in that regard. So even in highlighting the good, we try to be general. You know, we had 5 arrests. It was for various offenses. It was, we would not come down to what location they were or what area they were, because as I said, it has been my experience that survivors tend to believe, oh, he's talking about my case. Even if it's not, yes, it's very strange, especially when we divulge it to the media. It comes back to us, hey, you all divulge my information to the public, to the media. And we have to say, no, we weren't speaking directly about that incident.
On a different note, Sean and I, Talking Point WSN, always pleased to have the Trans-Tobago Police Service with us. And we always welcome you guys because as pointed out many times, we may not be aware of everything. So this level of education and information that is being shared on this platform and with the viewers, it's necessary. And as I said, even if you may think my criticisms are harsh, it is simply because I think we all want a better, safer TNT. And I certainly don't forget the fact that Trans-Tobago police officers are also citizens. From the understanding that, yes, we all from TNT, but you all live here as well. You have your families here. You have your children here. You know, so we want it to be a relationship that works for everybody. So as much as I will receive criticism, you know, do your job better, understand this better. It's the same way that hopefully we all understand. It's not in any sense of hatred, anger, frustration.
I think you have not received the best experience from the TTPS. I think that even when you spoke about the response you got from the TTPS as being poor, I think you are one of the few citizens that got that very poor response from the TTPS. I mean that from my perspective, I would ensure that, you know, from here on that you get a better response now that we have a relationship here. But
how fortunate.
How fortunate. But the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago expect that at every level. And that's what we're trying to do. That's why we encourage them, come to the senior officers, come to the persons in charge. Because the junior officers are there to respond and deal with things, deal with your reports as efficiently as possible. But sometimes, as I say, we fall short. And we always criticize the wonder policy. And even we have to come down on them disciplinarily and say, listen, that's a neglect of duty. When a citizen comes to the station and makes a report, you need to give them a receipt, and you need to forward the report to the relevant department, and you need to conduct investigation. And that's what goes on in the background. That's what you don't see happening. So we take them to task for it.
The irony is, as much as my co-host, he has highlighted multiple bad interactions with the police or poor responses. I actually have the different experience for the most part with with very few exceptions, which are indirect to me.
That might bother him, huh?
That is to say, somebody who I was with, not once but twice, had poor interactions. I myself just about never did.
Right.
So I don't know what that says. But I will say this about the media ambassadors. I think it's one of the best public information and communications programs that I've seen in the country, and I wish more entities, political, even private, would adopt it.
Maybe we could have Wasa here on a daily, a weekly show. Maybe we could have some other stakeholder here, answering a few questions. It seems as if the TTPS is the whipping child are trying to make it.
I will be honest with you, sir.
I didn't say it.
If we can have them here every day, they will be here.
Somebody.
And furthermore, I wonder if it's just my jurisdiction, man. This is not good.
It takes a certain amount of bravery, folks, to be willing to face the fire and be present for communications. Not even the leader of the opposition, much less the chairman of Paria is so brave. So
no worries about that at this point. Acting ASP Arun, my apologies. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thanks.
And
anytime.
Well, I look forward to more conversations to come.
Yes, of course. Thanks very much for having me.
Sean Michael Small.
Yep.
First day of May.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I almost wish it was first day of April with what happened Friday, but we'll see how everything unfolds.
Thankfully, nothing happened, put it that way. I'm grateful for that. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you to all our callers and to our viewers, and once more to Acting ASP Arun. It's stuck.
It's my fault, folks. I made a mistake first.
But this has been Talking Point. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day and a great week ahead. And we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.